Good morning. You're all very welcome. My name is Hilary McPartland, and I'm the Regional Skills Manager for the Northwest. So let me start by telling you a little bit about regional skills and why we're all here this morning. So Regional Skills is a government initiative, and our aim is basically to help businesses to access and develop skills for their employees. We provide free, independent, and impartial training and upskilling advice to businesses of all sizes across all sectors. We work with businesses in helping them to identify their skills needs, and then we link them with the education and training providers best suited to their needs. So, really, what we're trying to do here is to help companies to capitalize on the full range of existing education supports that are already available at all levels, from entry level right up to executive level, and many of which are highly subsidized. Now, the reason that we are here today is we are out talking to businesses every day, and we hear firsthand about the challenges you are facing in terms of recruitment and retention. So we partnered with our colleagues in the local enterprise offices in the region and Enterprise Ireland to bring you some practical advice on how to attract and retain talent. And it's particularly geared towards small businesses. So in terms of the format of the event, we are going to hear from our speakers first and then answer any questions you may have towards the end. So if I could ask you to please use the Q&A feature to ask your question, and we'll have plenty of time towards the end to go through your queries. We also have a poll active, and we'd love to get your feedback. We didn't want to just do one webinar and leave it at that. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet here, but we do want to hear from you in terms of what other supports you want and need into the future. And also to inform you that this event is being recorded, and we will send the recording to all participants as a follow-up. So now I would like to introduce you to our first speaker. Orla Burke is the Director of People and Culture at Finero Taxation Services. Finero is an Irish-owned SME in the tax and consultancy sector. Now, Orla herself has over 20 years of experience in human resources, with the last 13 years in leadership roles with national and international companies such as APC, Medtronic, Intersports Elveries, and more recently Tata Consultancy Services. So over to you, Orla.
Very much, Hilary. As Hilary said, I'm delighted to be here today. My name is Orla Burke. I'm the Director of People and Culture with Finero. And as Hilary said, there are no silver bullets, but I'm hoping that today I will be able to give you some tips and some tricks that will help you in your talent attraction and retention efforts going forward. So I suppose just to start off with a little bit about Finero. We are a tax and accountancy firm, and we mainly support contractors, freelancers and entrepreneurs across Ireland. Finero was set up by our CEO and founder in 2009. And over the last 15 years, we have grown and expanded within Ireland and in India. And we now have a team of nearly 100 employees between Ireland and India. Our head office is in Dublin, but our team in Ireland all work remotely, including myself, and I'm based here in the Northwest in Donegal town. While being fully remote has been beneficial in opening up access to talent pools, it also gives more options to our staff to work in other companies. So we put a lot of effort into building our culture and building a culture that makes our employees actually want to stay with us. So as you can see, employees do become the lifeblood of our organisation. We have been successful as a company because of the focus that we have put on our people. Our team is a mixture of tax and financial experts. Some would say nerds, but they are also passionate, customer-focused people, and that team literally becomes the lifeblood of our organisation. So I'm here to tell you some of the tips and tricks I've learned over the years. As Hilary did say, there's no silver bullets, but if you focus on some of these areas that I'm going to go through now with you, you should be in a much better situation for trying to attract and retain talent. So before I do, some quick stats. Turnover in Ireland, or attrition in Ireland in 2023 was at 14%. The main reason for people leaving was higher remuneration, career progression, and location change and travel. I think we've all realised in Ireland in the last year or so that we've a hangover from the COVID years when our younger people didn't get a chance to actually travel to other countries. So there seems to be an exodus of people at the moment. And then why do we focus on retention, or why do we care if people are leaving the company? Because it costs us money. So you can see there's an average cost ranging from a small business to a large business, anything between 8,000 and 12,000 euro to replace an employee. That can be the actual cost of recruitment. It can be the training cost to replace an employee and the time for them to get up to speed, as per the person who has left. So yes, it's important that we focus on it and we try to keep our staff. So to get into the keynote, what do we want to do? What are the things we should be focusing on? So I've broken these down into things to attract, 5 things to attract our talent, and then 5 things that will actually keep them once you've got them on board. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is knowing what's great for your business. You need to know what your unique selling point is, what is great about your business. If you're still in the mindset that somebody should be grateful to have a job, then you will not succeed in attracting great people to your organization. You need to stand out. It's a crowded marketplace. You want to attract highly skilled and motivated candidates. So you need to be very clear on what this is for your business. Just as clear on your employee selling points as you are on your customer selling points. So I know Ryan will touch more on this when he talks about the employee value proposition, but in a nutshell, you need to be able to describe why, as an employee, I should come work for you. What's in it for me? What are you offering that the candidate won't get elsewhere? Number 2, and this is really important, but you need to be really clear about the role. What do you want and what do you need the employee to do? So I would say for this, before you try and fill a role, before you advertise a role, take a step back and take a good look at your current objectives and goals for your company and how this role will actually support them. You have an opportunity. If you've had somebody in a role, they might have been there for 10 years, they've been working alongside you, they know everything about the business. It's not realistic that you're going to bring somebody in with the same level of experience to fill that role. But they might bring new thinking, they might bring innovative ways of doing things, they might know more about new technologies. So take a step back and have a look at how that job relates to the rest of your organizational structure. Consider the duties and responsibilities that you want the person to have, and then write the job spec and the advert for the roles. You should keep it simple, summarize the duties and responsibilities. I think one of the things I keep seeing companies doing is writing a wish list of 5 pages for job specs. They want the employee or the candidate to do everything and anything. They want them to be completely strategic as well as completely operational. You need to avoid all your internal jargon. You need to avoid the 3-letter abbreviations that your company has and find the balance between keeping the duties concise, easy to read, easy to understand, but then also defined enough so that your candidate understands what the job fully involves. This way, you're starting the employment relationship by being open, you're being transparent, you're being very clear, so you're starting the relationship off on a really good footing. So next one, number 3, take a skills-based approach to hiring. It would be very remiss of me to be on a regional skills forum call and not mention skills. So I'm a big believer in that you hire for the future when you're hiring for a role. So you'll have immediate and essential criteria that an employee needs to have, but that essential criteria should be what they need from day one on the job. Everything else is a nice to have and can be developed and can be trained on. So you automatically reduce your candidate pool if you put too many things on your job spec and if you put an exhaustive list of criteria, and you're immediately going to have a number of candidates who will self-select out of the process. So you've reduced your pool immediately. Some of the interesting things, if I was at a conference recently and there was a guy talking from LinkedIn, and 80% of the jobs on the rise on LinkedIn last year did not exist 20 years ago. So we've had major shifts in the world of work. Everybody is talking about Gen AI and how this will impact on jobs. We've had automation, we've had technology. Due to all of these things, most jobs will change over the next 10 years. So we need to hire our candidates based on skills, the aptitude to learn, and the agility to adapt to changing needs. You're 60% more likely to find a good hire if you take a skills-based approach. And then you also have the opportunity to allow your candidates to grow and develop in the organisation. So that's my top tip number 3. Number 4, when you're hiring and trying to attract candidates to your role, you need to use multiple channels. So you want to reach a broader talent base rather than reducing your talent pool, as we talked about in number 3. So use whatever channels you have at your disposal to reach that broader talent base. It can be your local job pages, it can be your company website. Utilize LinkedIn posts. There's a free job site, westernjobs.ie. Employers can post for free on that. If you're a remote company, growremote.ie allow for the posting of roles. You can obviously use recruitment agencies, and one that I don't think is utilised enough by companies is employee referrals. And this all comes back to your unique selling point and your great culture. If you have those, and if you've put the effort into doing that, your employees are more likely to tell one of their friends to come and work for you because it's a great place to work, and not tell them to avoid your company like the plague because they're treated terribly. So that's exactly the branding and the reputation you don't want to get in the market. So use multiple channels. And then the last one I'm going to talk about as we look at attraction is this kind of intentional, thoughtful onboarding process. So you've got the candidate, you've got them on board. Your process for welcoming and getting your new hire settled in is a reflection of your company culture. It totally sets the tone for their experience afterwards in the company. So what I mean by this is, don't just throw your new hire in at the deep end and expect them to swim. Have a planned out induction program for them. Cover off at least the first 30 days in the organisation. Assign a buddy to show them around. Support them for the first few weeks. That point person they can go to with any questions. Have some small gifts ready to welcome the employee on day one. Doesn't have to be anything large, just notebooks, pens, a water bottle, something small to say, we're really glad you're here and that you've made the decision to join our company. And make sure you schedule time for them to meet their teammates, be introduced to them properly, and get them set up on whatever systems and tools that they need to start their job. Right, so the one everyone talks about, and we know from our feedback from a lot of companies, salaries and remuneration is always an issue when we're trying to attract and retain candidates. I suppose the key thing you need to think about here, you needn't pay the highest salaries, but you do need to pay fair salaries based on the market. I would say that CIP CIPD research has shown that companies in Ireland are planning for an average of about a 4% increase in 2024. That's based off a 4 to 5% increase last year. It's not keeping in line with inflation, but we all know how much media stories and how much conversations are going on about inflation and the cost of living. So salaries and pay will always be an issue for staff, and you do need to be competitive around that. However, most companies will have constraints around affordability. You might be working to government pay scales. Industry costs might have been increasing. So what can you do if you can't offer high rates of pay? I would like to encourage you to think about this in a dual way. Both your rates of pay and your company practices will help support your retention. So many employees these days, they're seeking a healthy work-life balance. And once they're earning enough to cover their bills, flexibility might become more important to them at that stage than higher salaries. So think about, can you offer flexible working hours? Can you offer a condensed working week? Are part-time hours available? Job sharing options, split shifts, mornings only, hybrid working, remote working, all of these things that help employees to manage their lives outside of work and to allow them the flexibility to deliver what they're doing in a different type of way, but it shows that you care about your employee as a person and not just as somebody who's working for your company. And it may be a very attractive perk for your candidates. So next one then, number 7, is give employees the tools they need to be successful in their jobs. Now this one might sound very basic, but nothing is more frustrating for somebody starting in a new role or in a company where their laptop isn't set up, or their email address doesn't work, or there's no uniform in their size, or whatever is needed for them to start doing their job with your company. So it gives the impression that nobody prepared for the new hire and that they're not important and they're not valued. So prior to Johnny or Mary starting on Monday morning, make sure the team are aware that there's a new hire. Somebody is assigned to look after them. Their name is at security, or they have the logon details to get onto your IT system. All of these things are small frustrations, but they add up. And they lead to employees not feeling valued. So if you want to retain your good staff, fix any of these issues for your current staff now and give your new staff the tools they need to do the job effectively. Number 8, I would encourage you to invest in your employees as much as possible. On the most basic level, giving and receiving feedback is essential to help both the employee and the company grow and develop. So your employee deserves regular one-to-ones. They deserve feedback so they know how they're performing, where they need to improve, and what supports are in place to help them. On an ongoing basis, you need to be offering training opportunities linked to the employee's career path or the company needs. You should offer things like time off or support to gain certifications, encourage training for employee growth and career development, and also try and promote from within wherever possible, because that helps your employees see a career path for them within the organisation. Internal mentoring or coaching programs can be a great way to develop your junior staff within the business, or you could try reverse mentoring to have younger staff mentor more experienced ones, maybe for example on AI or other new technologies. There is a wealth of training and development opportunities available, so I'd encourage you to reach out to Hilary in the first instance to see what's available and what you can offer to your staff. Number 9, as a smaller company, I'm going to say the best thing you can do is to get to know your employees and treat them well. All companies in Ireland are facing challenges in relation to employee engagement levels, lack of team connection, company culture. It just seems to be something that's happening across the board. So as a smaller business, you have the opportunity to really get to know your staff well and understand their needs, their skills, their potential. As I mentioned, regular one-to-ones will help. It forms the basis of building rapport and building relationships. But you have other opportunities to celebrate their highs and lows with them. You know, it's their birthday, have a cake and sing happy birthday. Show your employees that you care in a meaningful way that a large multinational could never do, because they just don't have the opportunity to build those personal relationships, really build their community and their connection at work. And finally, that catch-all phrase I'm going to tell you, to continuously improve. So none of us can sit on our laurels. We will always need to strive to get better in order to attract and retain people who want to work for us. So there's always going to be another company that's better than us, or works at sexier technology, or has a nicer canteen. But that doesn't mean that you don't try to improve what you do offer. So you can do that by getting regular feedback from your employees. That can be formal, it can be informal. Find out what's important to them. Take action once you get that feedback. That's really important. Don't just do a survey and then let it sit on a shelf someplace. And also communicate back to your employees and tell them what actions have been taken and why. This helps build trust. It helps you get to know your employees better, which will help you develop your culture, which will help you retain your staff. And if you do it all really, really well, when somebody does leave, they might just have a friend that they would recommend to come and work for you in their place. So thank you very much for your time, and I will hand back over to Hilary.
Thanks so much, Orla. Some very clear and concise advice there. I think it's great to hear how you can take some of the successful practices from the large multinationals and you're able to tailor them to the smaller businesses. A reminder that you can ask any questions via the Q&A feature and we'll answer them at the end, and also a reminder to vote in our poll for any future supports you would like to see. Now I would like to introduce our second speaker. Ryan Williams is the co-founder and director of Conseia Talent. As co-founder, Ryan has been with Conseia since its inception in early 2014 and has spent over 2 decades in the talent management space, assisting both public and private sector organizations to diagnose, enhance, and develop both their strategic and operational people infrastructure. Over to you, Ryan.
Thank you very much. Nice to see everybody this morning. You can always tell somebody who's been in talent for 20 years because they have no hair, particularly if you're a guy. What I'll try to do this morning is take you through some very practical learnings. So this will be the least MBA orientated talent attraction and retention kind of content you will have seen. Can we just pull up the presentation now if at all possible? That's super. Let me just check the clicker is working, and we're all working great. Yeah, so look, thanks for the lovely intro. But look, in simple terms, I've had the privilege to work with a significant amount of Fortune 500 companies, the likes of the Googles and the HP and the Microsoft across Europe, Middle East and Africa. But over the last 10 years, and one of the key reasons for setting up Conseia with my co-founder Graham Morris was we wanted to bring that expertise, poacher turned gamekeeper, if you like, and try to work with SMEs, particularly Indigenous Irish SMEs, to help them understand and do talent better, essentially. And that's really what we spent the last kind of 8, 9, 10 years doing, is doing just that, both in terms of supporting Enterprise Ireland and indeed clients on a one-to-one basis. The talent context, we all know it's incredibly difficult at the moment. We know that we're pretty much at zero unemployment, but we all share the same problems. And there's comfort in shared misery, as I always say. And what I'm going to do is try to give you some, as Orla has eloquently outlined, there is no silver bullet in terms of this, but there are loads of smaller bullets that over time can actually help you do talent attraction and retention much better. A significant amount of what I'll focus on this morning is around the EVP, your employer value proposition. And again, as Orla has said, this is about getting down to, I want you guys to think about becoming a red tin on a beige tin of paint on a shelf, essentially. So finding that unique differential that says, this is why we are different. This is what makes us an employer to work for. This is what makes us better, a better offer than the likes of the Googles and the HP and the Microsofts and the Medtronics, etc. This is our distinguishing factor. And I am 100% sure with the right differentials, you can actually succeed. Okay, because there's lots of stuff that those big oil tankers simply can't do. They are not fleet of foot like you. Yeah, it takes them a long time to develop these kind of talent attraction strategies and things like that. Whereas as SMEs, we can all move really quickly, try new things. If they work, do more of it. If they don't work, do less of it. Simple things like that that the big oil tankers simply just can't do. The other thing I'm really going to get you to think about, recruitment is not a HR tool. Recruitment is not HR, it is a sales function. And if we think of recruitment as sales and attraction as sales, it's a much better mindset to think around. The other thing I want you to think about, who is actually in our workforce today and who are we recruiting over the next 2 or 3 months, over the next 2 or 3 years, etc., etc. But the most important factor here is really demographic, because the demographics within our workplaces actually consume their information, or think in entirely different ways, are motivated by entirely different things. And my little Lego men there in terms of the generational differences, Generation X being almost me. I think I'm a baby boomer and a little bit of Generation X as well at the tropical age of 49. But our expectations and where we consume our information is very different from the likes of Generation Z who are coming into the workplace. So consuming your information on things like TikTok, you're not going to find Generation Z on Facebook. They are more likely, for example, to go on to Glassdoor to read what it's actually like to work for you, rather than going onto your company website, for example. But what we tend to do in terms of attraction, we do the same things as everybody else. We don't think about those generational differences and the demographics in our workplace. As a consequence, the messaging is often lost. So if you want to attract more Gen Z, why do we not feature the A-star performers of Gen Z in our current workplaces right now? Why are they not documenting what they're doing on the likes of a TikTok platform? Why are they not on Glassdoor saying what a great place this is to work? Look at how they've advanced. So it's thinking about those sorts of things in a different way. One size does not fit all. So understanding the demographic, one of the most useful little tools, I drew this little stick man myself. I know it's a beautiful thing to behold, but what I want you to think about over the next kind of few minutes and over the next number of weeks as you look at your EVP attraction and retention strategy is, who do we actually want to recruit? What actually makes them tick? Where do they consume their information? What age are they? What universities or colleges did they go to? Where do they meet? Are you in a place where most of your employees are within a 3-4 mile radius of your site? Well, why are we not partnering with the likes of the local GAA clubs? If we know that particular demographic, that's where they hang out, why are we not sponsoring a little bit there? Think differently rather than let's just post something onto Indeed, cross our fingers and hope for the best, because pretty much that's what a lot of us actually do. Okay, so think about who are we actually going to recruit. The customer of the candidate is really, really important. The next piece of very practical advice, the war for talent was an invention which has served commercial recruitment businesses really well for about 20 years. It was pure invention by McKinsey's, and we disagree completely with it. If you think this is a talent war, it's back to the stuff that Orla mentions. You think you have to pay more, pay 10% more, 15% more, 20% more, pay the recruiter even more than the competitors down the road. That is not the way to win in this particular battle. If we think this is trench warfare, it's the wrong kind of mindset. One of the key places in the world in terms of attraction, you would think the most difficult place to attract is Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley does not have a talent issue because they simply expect talent to leave. They are farmers in the ecology of talent. Yeah. So this idea of the kind of revolving door, they just expect talent to leave, but hey, it might come back in 3 or 4 years' time. So this idea of an ecology where talent goes off, gets better, and might return again. If your exit strategy, we don't call them exit interviews in our business, we call them retention interviews. How do we help talent to stay? And more importantly, how do we help talent to come back? So see yourself as a farmer in the ecology of talent attraction and retention. It will serve you much better. Again, a very useful thing that you can do in your own time with your various directors and individuals within the business. Try to find those 3 key words why someone should apply to your business. You know what happens when we do this? When we do this within our Enterprise Ireland workshops, which are a full day on this kind of stuff, is people join us for the culture, and we're a family business, and it's exciting. Everybody says exactly the same things. Do not use words like culture. Get underneath the skin of this, peel back the onion another few layers, and really think about why should someone apply to our business. Keep it real, keep it honest, and find something that's different. And doing little polls across your businesses to get those 3 words is a really, really useful exercise. So what is an employer value proposition approach? In very simple terms, this is how we see it, okay? And what I want you to think about is, how do we develop our employer value proposition? What is our sales approach in terms of talent attraction and retention? And it's 5 pillars. So compensation, Orla, is 100% correct. You've got to pay around the average, maybe slightly above the average. But if you think that's the be all and end all, you're very much mistaken. When we're thinking about benefits, the second tier there, again, think about what benefits actually count. So if we look at all the research, for example, in terms of Gen Z, they value things like free gym membership much more than they will value a really decent pension, for example, because that's just the way the human brain works at the various ages. Again, think about the demographics. Have a menu of benefits, perhaps, that say, look, this is what we do for the various kind of demographics within our workforce. It's a menu. You can choose 2 of 4 or 3 of 6 or whatever it might be, and try to find those things that resonate with who you're actually trying to recruit and who's in your workplace right now. The career piece, how do I progress? What learning and development there is. The amount of SMEs that we deal with in Ireland who have a raft of learning and development programs and things like that don't actually showcase them in the right way. So why are they not called the Kinsia Academy or the Kinsia University? Why are they not accessible enough? Why do we not communicate them enough? Simple things like that can make a huge difference for people to say, this is a company I want to come to and a company I want to stay with for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, etc. Your work environment. We are lucky enough to be in one of the most beautiful countries in the world. We do not showcase simple things often in terms of where we're located. We had a great client in Maynooth as part of one of our previous programs. They were competing for talent with the likes of the Googles and the Microsofts, etc., who were traveling from Maynooth, often into Dublin every day, going straight past their front door. So the guys, as part of their EVP, brilliant work-life balance for a tech company, but they put signs up and marketing up on the at Maynooth train station and bus station, etc., to say, if you worked with us, you'd be at work by now. So all those guys going into Dublin every day for those big jobs, salaries were similar, benefits were similar, but market your location. A simple thing like work environment can be a very powerful motivator. And then culture, my least favorite word in terms of EVP, but probably the most important one once you get underneath what that actually means. So culture can be something as simple as, which the big FDIs can't do. You can't walk into Mark Zuckerberg's office for a chat at any given time. But lots of our SMEs have real access to the founders, to the chief executives, to the directors. And at various parts of your career and certain parts of that demographic, again, really value that access to leadership. How do we use leadership as part of our culture and access to leadership to make people more sticky? Let's turn our people into really nice, sticky magnets. And these are the sorts of things that resonate with the workplace and with the people that work for us every day. So this was kind of harps back to what I was saying about, if your entire attraction strategy is based on sticking an ad up onto LinkedIn or onto Indeed, there's only 12% of that particular audience actually looking for a job right now. It is minuscule. Yeah. Now, the good news is that 85% of the market are actually happy to hear from you, because only 15% of us are actually fully satisfied with what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. However, how do we penetrate that passive candidate market, the people who actually aren't looking for a job right now? And that's about, how do we sell that USP or EVP to that broader marketplace? So do we have our A-star performers talking about what a great site they are in Wicklow this morning, managing a team of 4 or 5 people? Is it somebody else who's just one employee of the month in terms of LinkedIn? They're doing a little video on TikTok. They're celebrating what it means to work for you. How are we building the relationship with that audience? How are we pipelining talent that says, these are people that I want to work for? There's around 5 to 7 touch points before someone will apply for a job with you. Yeah, it might be a company van, it might be a review on Glassdoor, it might be something you post on LinkedIn. But this consistency of message and communicating what is genuinely different, that's the way to win in the marketplace. The competition for passive talent has never been more significant. So again, we've got to think about that. And brands can be a strength and a weakness. And I'll give a few quick examples of that as we go through the deck as well. Talent pipelining, I've mentioned. The other thing that we can do is, that's about warming up the audience. Time to hire is critically important. If your time to hire is more than 2 weeks or so as a small business, you are failing. If we look at the likes of IBM's time to hire, it's 92 days. This is an area of true differentiation. One of our clients in Brno in the Czech Republic, they became known as the one-day hiring company. They were a printer software company in Brno in the Czech Republic, competing with all the big kind of Fortune 500 type companies. And they had 3 technical tests in the morning, three interviews in the afternoon and a job offer or not before you left, with feedback either way. The one-day hiring company. Now, that's not what it was, but what an EVP. Shorten down the time to hire. It's true differentiation. And if there are people within your hiring community who are slowing that down, either remove them or retrain them, because that time to hire is critically important in a hotly contested candidate pool. Interactive social capture. So if you're going to do social, if you're going to do LinkedIn and Facebook and TikTok or whatever, own it, do it properly. Don't post something once every 3 months. Yeah, it's like the second page of Google. It's a great place to bury dead bodies. Nobody goes there. So your social media basically has to resonate, and it has to be consistent, and it doesn't have to be particularly sexy. It can be done on things like this, really easy, getting your employees to do a little bit of video, some nice images, some nice posting. It doesn't have to be over thought out, okay? Credit approval, all I mentioned as well. So staff referral schemes are the best hires you'll ever make. They're the most affordable schemes you'll ever have in place. But this continual credit approval of people who work with you, getting testimonials, getting little bits of video, really, really important, tying in with placement ambassadors and referrals as well. Also, make the application process as simple as possible. If you can do it with your LinkedIn profile, do it. Okay, spend more time out the other end. There's some great AI tools now in terms of filtering applications and things like that to take some of that pain away, but make it easy to apply. The number of small companies that don't have a careers link on their homepage, and we say that talent is the most important thing. Talent's what we're all about. We've got to attract more of it, but you don't have an easy link even from your homepage into the jobs that are live right now. Simple stuff like that makes a huge, huge difference. Okay. So yeah, become the red tin of paint. This is what I'm going to say to you. Some companies have done this really well. I have a video here with Cisco. They've done a really nice piece. They actually do become the red tin of paint in the video. The other one worth looking at is a company called Zendesk, when they were a lot smaller in San Francisco when they started out. Done on a very, very low budget, but you can catch them all on YouTube. Really, really interesting to say, how do we paint that USP? How do we stand out from the crowd? And it only needs to be one or two things, yeah? And it's not the usual stuff of people join us for our culture or join us because we're a family business. That can be sold and explained in a way which resonates better with candidates. So we're going to skip through the video, guys, if that's okay, and we're going to move into some of the other kind of local examples. So a few companies here that have been on the Enterprise Ireland Wider program. Neuritas, really, really good company, worth looking at in terms of how they do their entire EVP, talent attraction and retention. Nutritics as well, again, really positive. A great founder story on Nutritics. Check out the founder story. Again, that gives just extra kind of currency in terms of why someone should apply. Kyo's Crisps, really good for company values and for understanding what their culture is. And these are a set of company values that you've never seen before. Yeah. So company values that say transparency, integrity, that kind of stuff. They're the same kind of company values as Enron, and we all know that didn't end particularly well. Find company values which are genuinely different and resonate. Okay. Kyo's Crisps, great example of that. So your candidate experience as well. There's a guy did a piece of work in Virgin Media around the number of people who cancelled their broadband after an interview experience with Virgin Media. They worked out they were losing 2.4 million per year just in cancelled subscriptions for broadband. Crazy stuff. Make the interview process a genuinely efficient and pleasant experience. This is also particularly important as well, and something that the bigger companies can't do. As SMEs, most of your hires, a better use of your time is things like referral processes. It's also having 4 or 5 cups of coffee rather than posting onto LinkedIn, thinking we're going to sponsor something and people are going to start applying. Use relationships of your current staff and yourself to have those cups of coffee, to take people out for lunch, to talk about what it's genuinely like to work in your particular business. You will get significantly more traction with those sorts of approaches than you will with anything else. That's not to say don't do your nice LinkedIn post. Make sure you do your Indeed posting as well. It just depends on what you're trying to recruit. But for those mid to senior level hires in particular, that one-to-one approach is really important. If you're trying to recruit more than that, the one-to-many, you've got to get back into thinking about the demographics, thinking about where they hang out, where they consume their information, and what messages you're going to present. So candidates talk, improve the experience. Yeah. Really simple example here, and this deck will obviously be available as part of the recording as well. But if I could talk about maybe 1 or 2 key things here in particular. You've got to find ways of making this an enjoyable process. Really simple thing to do is, if somebody gets selected for interview, you have one of your really warm people in your business, one of the really enthusiastic A-star people in your business, often it's one of your front of house people, to phone the candidates and say, my name's Ryan, and I'm here to help you get this job. Right? If you've any questions about the application process, where you should park your car, who you're meeting on the interview panel, yeah, have an interview coach like that who takes questions and just makes it a more pleasant experience, because at this stage, they've already committed serious time. Now, do you think somebody who isn't successful in that job process will still talk warmly about the company and apply again in the future? Of course they will. Again, this is a sales process, not a HR process. Keep that in mind. Other things you can look at as well, having your panel to understand how to grade candidates. Traffic light systems are really effective. Green candidates are, these guys are perfect for the job. Amber, you need to explore these kind of issues. Red, look, we should spend less time here. And getting your hiring community to think like that is really important. And also reporting and visibility. Get the stats. How long did it take us to hire? What sort of outcome did that have? Where did we place our ads? What kind of marketing did we push out there? And having good data on that is critically important. Kind of AI, we get lots of questions around it at the moment. There's some really good things out there. ChatGPT is a dream in terms of rewriting job specifications and descriptions. As Orla eloquently put, 4 or 5 page job descriptions and specifications are nonsense. They will never read past the first paragraph or 2, so don't waste your time. But ChatGPT will take your 5 page and put it into 2 really effective paragraphs really quickly. Occupop built AI into the process. It's pretty good. Ideal and Interviewer AI as well. I can't go into all of this today. We don't have the time, but there are some very simple tools that are really, really effective. Honest job descriptions as well. Some really good examples with Red Bull. Account sales manager. You drive a box truck and deliver it to stores, essentially. 60 billion cans sold, 169 country, in business 28 years. That's what an EVP looks like for Red Bull. You might hate their product, but the way they articulate their sales manager position with the socials down the side, if you want to hear more from an actual account sales manager, simple things like that really, really work well. Another really good example, Uber. Simple messages there. Their USP is make good money, drive when you want. It's simple, it's straightforward, everybody gets it, and you can apply on a homepage. If it's good enough for Uber, it works for us. I'm going to skip that one due to time. Everybody thinks Google is the best employer in the world. I would say that's not the case. The average tenure in Google these days now is 14 to 15 months. That's how long a typical employee lasts. They have 3 meals a day. The dinner doesn't start until after 6 o'clock to make people stay later. The free shuttle bus has got Wi-Fi, so you can start working earlier. And bring dogs to the office. Pets are one of the key reasons why people go home. All of this is constructed in a way to keep the employee in the workplace for longer. It's not necessarily a good thing. Folks, there's always a price for free ice cream. Proactive social media, as I say, if you're going to do it properly. So in terms of the EVP, what I want you guys to think about very much is the why, right? So why should someone apply to a company? Why should someone join and stay with their company? And then why should someone stay with their company into the future? If you ask those whys on a continual basis, it keeps you honest and it keeps your kind of attraction and retention stuff up to speed as well. Yeah, so EVP is just as important for retention. So we're going to do a few quick slides on that before we finish. But if you look at how important retention is, particularly in SMEs, if you look at WhatsApp when it was sold, its market capitalization of 21 billion, there was only 55 people working there. They lost 10% of their workplace there. They were in serious, serious trouble. But compare that to the likes of the GEs and the Fords and even the Apples, for example, as well. So we understand in SMEs just how important those hires actually are. Some stats on retention. I think the most worrying one here is that the number of people who actually test their jobs on a daily basis is actually quite significant. And I think that's a critical point here. But almost just over 50% or around 50% of staff actually leave their jobs because of poor leadership. Poor leadership, 40 to 50%. It's not about wages. That's what we're told in exit interviews. It's not about wages. It's actually about leadership and the leadership culture within the organization and its direct managers. That's a really important thing. So we don't do very little. We do very little leadership training for our senior teams and our mid-level teams, particularly middle managers. Middle managers who might be the leaders of the future. We don't give them enough leadership training, but it's one of the key reasons as to why people actually leave our businesses and organizations. So There are essentially three types. This is the Aon Hewitt model. It's a really, really good model to have a look at when you have more time, essentially. But it's essentially three tiers of staff. Number one, you've got our A-star performers. We all know who they are. They're highly engaged. Yeah, they celebrate your company on a day-to-day basis. Then you've got this kind of second tier who are not necessarily engaged, clocking in, clocking out. There's something amiss there. And then the third layer down is the actively disengaged. And that's why some attrition is a really good thing, because those actively disengaged people are living out their kind of bad experiences. They are that kind of bad apple in the barrel. Yeah. And there has to be a mechanism to deal with that in the right way and bring them up those tiers of that particular pyramid. But if we're all honest, that's what our workplaces look like. So, right, a lot of animation in this, but what we really want in terms of this particular model is our employees with the three S's. We want people to say good things about us and celebrate what it's like to work there. We want people to stay and talk about the reasons for staying, and we want that strive factor. So we want people to go beyond the kind of, the kind of mainstream expectation. The three S's: say, stay, and strive. And again, you can take more time to look at that post presentation or post my very rapid AK-47 run through what this looks like. In terms of the actual engagement drivers on the model, again, if you're giving attention to these kind of 5 things, leadership, as I've mentioned, really important. Performance, how is my performance evaluated? Is it clear? Is it fair? Is it transparent? The work that we do, how do I do my work? Do I have access to mentors and support? Do I have inspirational leadership? Yeah, that kind of stuff. And then the basics, that's the hygiene factors around salary and benefits and things like that. Company practices, what's the staff handbook look like? Is it easy to navigate? Do we understand it? And the final one is brand. How does that company brand and culture make me feel on a day-to-day basis? If we focus on those drivers, we get more of stay, say, and strive, the 3 S's, if we focus on those particular drivers. And again, with all my kind of key animation here, the business outcomes are essentially very, very positive in terms of talent, in terms of your customers, financial impacts, but also that operational gold as well, which is critically important. Automation of talent IT, I'm not going to get into it. So SMEs always ask us, well, what is top talent actually looking for? They're looking for challenge, because believe it or not, we like to be challenged. They're looking for opportunity. How do I progress? They're looking for a lack of red tape. And as SMEs, that is our gift that FDIs often just can't do. They want to be held accountable, believe it or not. They want other top talent. You've got to keep your retention strategies updated as well. If you haven't looked at attraction and retention in 3 months, you're probably already out of date. This process of updating is critically important. We all want mentors. That talent pipelining and succession planning is critically important as well, particularly in family businesses, of which there are, I'm sure, many on the call. And we also need that selection of motivators and benefits, particularly relevant to the demographic. So somebody at 23, 24 will be probably delighted to travel around the world. Somebody at 45 to 50 with 4 kids, possibly not. Again, make the opportunities resonate with your demographic to make them more sticky. So again, a very quick point in terms of retention. So the war for talent that McKinsey's invented as very, very poor and expensive consultants. So if you look at the definitions of talent, we all think it's about the A-star performers. Just give me A-star performers, and it is absolute nonsense. If we look at the kind of the bell curve in terms of the star approach, this is really what our workplaces look like. You've got 10 to 20% who are brilliant, your A-star performers. We all know who they are. You've got 10 to 20% who are, if you like, those actively disengaged staff. And that's why processes to exit are a healthy thing, and some attrition is a healthy thing. But we all pretty much sit in the middle of that 60 to 80%. We're all in that B category, because guess what? We might like our work okay, it might pay the bills and things like that, but we have other responsibilities. That group, look after them, support them, because that is the bulk of our workplace. But retention strategies often only deal with these A-star performers. We've got to keep our best people, when most of us sit in a very different category. And believe it or not, we've other things going on in our lives as well. That's just the way life actually is. And again, just to finish on some of the retention bits and bobs, because I'm probably over time at this stage, which I understand. Individual capability is important, but it's only about 30% of what makes organizations successful, and the individual successful as well. 70% is about how we frame the culture of our organizations, the access to resources, the lack of red tape, access to mentorship. That's actually what makes people successful. Harvard have done a lot of research in this in terms of former GE executives. Those that went to similar organizations were successful. Those that went to SMEs and high growth startups were not, because they couldn't cope with the fabric and the structure. Okay, so just keep that in mind in terms of, look, don't think that those A-star performers are the reason for living, or the only reason for growing and how we grow our businesses. It's just not the case. It's important, but it's only part of that particular recipe. So free your talent and let it go. Another really helpful exercise: why should someone stay with your organization? Get honest about that. Get little focus groups together. Do your survey monkeys as well in terms of your staff surveys. The number of organizations who don't ask their people about why they're staying. Why are you going to? Do you see yourself here in a year's time? Yeah. How would you rank your motivation in the business right now? Use things like Office Vibe to get a sentiment kind of feel for how motivated people are on a week-to-week basis. But do those salary surveys. If we don't ask our people, how could we possibly know why they stay and what motivates them to stay? Okay. And if they tell you something that's critical or can improve things, for goodness sake, do it. The worst thing is doing staff surveys and not following them up. And finally, as Orla has said much more eloquently than me again, is get that roadmap in place. Yeah, put these things in place. Do one or two things, then do another two or three things, assess them, and then roll them out across the organization, and then do some more. A very simple, straightforward process. Whew, guys, that's as fast as I can do it. Hopefully that was useful, and hopefully you can play through the presentation for more detail, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks so much for that, Ryan. I like what you said about recruitment not being a HR function, it's a sales function. And I love that concept of the interview coach. I think that's something really simple that everyone can do. As you said, you did cover a lot of very valuable ground there, and we did give you a short amount of time, but we will send the recording out to everyone, and please feel free to share the recording with your colleagues. Now we'll move on to the question and answer session. So if you do have any queries, please use the Q&A facility on screen and we'll go through them now. Ryan, I might start actually. You mentioned really quickly there about getting kind of a weekly office vibe. How exactly would a company do that?
Yeah, so there's loads of little free apps, and Office Vibe is actually one of the names of one of those particular apps. And it's a bit like, do you know when you walk through an airport and there's the happy, smiley face down to the grumpy face? It's almost like a version of that in terms of the app. And what it does is, now it's anonymous, obviously, but what you find is, maybe little divisions within the company or individuals. You can ask questions like, how motivated do you feel this week, or how stressed do you feel this week? And you get a quick kind of radar check about how people are feeling. And what that prompts you to do is maybe, look, maybe we need to have a little focus group here, or an all hands, or we need to have something like that to have a conversation around, are people struggling with the amount of work they've on? But there's loads of little apps. Office Vibes, just one example of that, and they work really, really well.
Brilliant, perfect. Again, another kind of really quick and easy tip for people. There's a question here in the Q&A. So it's saying, hi Orla and Ryan, great presentation and very helpful information. I have a query on employee surveys in the workplace as part of the EVP. How important are they and what should they really focus on? I'll come to you first again, Ryan, on that.
Yeah, sure. So I like really simple, straightforward staff surveys that ask questions which actually are valuable. And it is around to things like, do you see yourself here in a year's time? That gives you a really good feel for how you're getting on in terms of motivating and retaining a workforce. If you had 3 words to describe this particular business, what 3 words would you use? And you can compare those over time and do little cloud maps and things like that as well. Staff surveys, I can't overstate the value of them. Do them at least once a year, ideally twice a year. But also then tie that into, a quarterly all hands or a monthly all hands. Those things really, really work in a small business, and we often underestimate the value they can have. But yeah, I'm sure Orla would agree in terms of the importance of staff surveys.
Orla, I might hand over to you. Do you have any further comment on that?
Totally agree with what Ryan was saying there. Keep them short, keep them valuable as to what information you're truly looking for, and that will allow you to trend it over time, which is really important as well. But the most important thing, follow up. If you're getting feedback that says you have a problem or that you need to take action in a particular area, you need to take that action, because why would somebody fill out the survey the next time if you don't?
Perfect, great advice. We're really coming close on time, so I think I might start to wrap things up. I'd like to thank both our speakers, Orla Burke and Ryan Williams, for your invaluable insights into the strategies to attract and retain top talent. Thanks to the Local Enterprise Office and Enterprise Ireland for their support. Thanks to Margaret from Regional Skills for helping to organise this event. And thanks to you all for joining us here today and participating in the event. We will take the feedback from the poll, which will inform us for future events and support. So do keep an eye out for updates. As we said, we'll send the recording to you all as a follow-up. And please do feel free to reach out to us here in Regional Skills if you need any advice in relation to upskilling or reskilling your employees. Thanks very much, folks, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.